Although polished stone makes a great background paper, it's also a wonderful backdrop for your focal images. I stumbled onto this technique by accident and I was amazed at how beautiful polished stone looks when you bleach it. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. You're going to begin by doing a piece of polished stone background paper. And if you haven't had a chance to watch the polished stone video yet, that's a great one to watch to see how I got this particular effect. Then next, you're going to need some embossing products. You're going to need a Versamark pad, an anti-static pad, some sort of rubber stamp that's the type of rubber stamp that you would normally color in. You're going to need a Niji water brush or some sort of paintbrush to paint the bleach on, some household bleach. In this case, I'm using black detail embossing powder. You certainly can use other colors if you want. You're going to need a heat tool. And you're going to need some sort of thing to protect your workspace. And in this case, I'm using the score mat, and then I've got another piece of paper on top so that I can collect my embossing powder and get it back in my jar easily. All right, so let's make a little bit of room here. To begin, I'm going to rub my anti-static pad all over the surface of my polished stone paper. That will prevent static on the paper surface, and this way when you use embossing powder it will only stick to the areas that you want it to stick. Now using a Versamark pad, I'm going to ink up the butterfly stamp. Let me make sure my paper is nice and flat. And I'm going to stamp 2 butterflies. Stamp one there. Now remember, when you're working on glossy paper, it can be a little bit slippery, so you just want to press straight down and pull straight up. You don't really want to wiggle the stamp too much so it doesn't look smeary. Okay. So now I have 2 butterfly images stamped. Next, I'm going to put some of the black detail embossing powder on my butterflies. And then blow away the excess embossing powder, and you can see that now I have 2 embossed butterflies, or butterflies with embossing powder on them. I'm going to emboss them next with my heat tool. Okay, I've got rid of that. Okay, now I'm going to emboss the butterflies. And when you emboss, you want to make sure that you hold the embossing gun just in one spot until you see the embossing powder change to a shiny color. You really don't want to move it all around like you were blow drying your hair. I often get asked if you can use a regular hair dryer for embossing. And the problem with a regular hair dryer is, number 1, it doesn't get quite hot enough to melt the embossing powder, and number 2, because it's got such a strong current of air that comes out of the end, it'll probably blow most of your embossing powder off your project. So I would stick with a heat tool. Okay, now I've embossed those butterflies, and the next thing I'm going to do is using a little bit of bleach, and let me grab a scratch piece of paper here. I'm going to dip my Niji brush into the bleach, and I'm going to begin to bleach my butterflies. Now, one of the things that I expected to happen was I expected that my butterflies would turn white. But what happened instead, and I'm sure you can see this starting to happen, is it seemed like the gold ink really just popped, and the other inks kind of just disappeared. So my butterflies turned a really pretty shade of yellowish gold. Such a pretty look. And even though the butterflies look really pretty just by themselves, stamped and embossed, there's something about being able to pull a little bit of that color out and make them pop off the paper. Isn't that interesting how, although you're using bleach, it doesn't bleach out the dye. It just accents it. So pretty. And remember, just like bleach anywhere, you want to be careful to stay within the lines, because if you go outside the lines, it will bleach outside the lines. I haven't tried this with too many other colors yet, but I'm sure that you would get a very similar effect if you used the copper or the silver. It'd be a lot of fun to try all the different colors that you can and see what you get. So there, now I've bleached my butterflies, and it actually just brought out a really pretty marbly yellowish gold color. Let me show you how pretty polished stone looks on my card project. These types of cards are beautiful all by themselves, and you really don't need to add any greeting at all. You can just add them on the inside if you want one. They make great gift sets, and they're quick and easy to do.